Pisces, there are moments in life that arrive quietly, no warning, no dramatic event. Yet they are deep enough to make your heart slow down, just from a passing breeze, an accidental glance, or a familiar feeling you cannot quite explain. Lately, you may have been sensing this. A different kind of sensitivity, not weakness, but a refinement awakening after a long time asleep. Your intuition no longer whispers. It speaks more clearly now, closer. And sometimes it asks you to stay silent for a long time, just to listen to yourself. There are mornings when you wake up and cannot explain why your heart feels both heavy and light at the same time. No bad news, nothing obvious happening. Yet you know something has shifted. Old memories return without noise, without drama. They simply stand there like a mirror. And as you look into it, you realize how far you have traveled from the person you once were, the wounds you hid carefully, the times you chose silence instead of speaking, the moments you gave more than was ever required. They appear now not to hurt you, but to remind you how much you have grown. Pisces has always lived through emotion, but this time, the emotion carries a different weight. It does not pull you forward, it holds you still. It asks you to pause in the middle of a fast-moving life, so you can feel clearly that a circle is slowly closing. You may not be able to name what is coming next, but you know something has completed its purpose. A phase, an old belief, a way of loving, or even a version of yourself that walked beside you for a very long time. Now, it is gently moving to another place in memory. What is different is that you no longer resist this feeling. Before, you may have stayed busy to avoid feeling, stayed strong to avoid admitting how fragile you were, but now you allow yourself to slow down. You allow yourself to feel, and within that permission, a soft light begins to spread. You realize that not every ending is a loss. Some endings are simply completion, a quiet thank you to what once kept you alive during your hardest days. If you find yourself more easily moved, more easily touched by tears, or smiling at very small things, trust that this is not weakness. It is the sign of a heart opening wider. You are entering a time when your soul feels safe enough to look back, strong enough to let go, and trusting enough not to know exactly where the road ahead will lead. Only knowing that it is guiding you away from what no longer fits the person you are becoming. There is a quiet beauty in this season, like the last light of day, when the sun is no longer harsh, yet everything becomes clearer. You look at your life with different eyes. No judgment, no blame, only observation, only understanding. And from that understanding, space is created. Space for something new to enter, naturally, without force, without effort. Give yourself a little more time to stay in this feeling, Pisces. No rush to find answers, no need to push yourself to be strong right away. Some things in life only need to be fully felt to find their place. And as you continue walking forward with a heart that is soft yet stronger than ever, you will begin to notice there are encounters, there are people quietly moving closer, carrying pieces you never knew you had been waiting for. And then, within that stillness, something begins to shift, very quietly. Not a sudden event, not a door swinging open all at once, more like two sets of footsteps entering the orbit of your life from different directions. You may not notice it right away, but their energy is already there, brushing gently against your naturally sensitive emotional field, causing your heart to respond to two very different rhythms. One person arrives with a strangely familiar feeling. It could be their eyes, their voice, the way they sit in silence, or simply the way being near them brings you back to a version of yourself from another time. Without many words, their presence feels like an old key, opening rooms you once locked away. Memories you believed were settled begin to rise again. Not to pull you backward, but to help you see clearly what still belongs with you and what has already completed its role in your growth. Around this person, emotions may surface quickly. There is warmth, there is nostalgia, and sometimes a quiet sadness you never quite named. You begin to understand that some lessons in life do not disappear simply because time passes. They return, more gently now, to see how deeply you have understood them and whether you still need to carry them forward. This person does not need to stay long, yet their presence alone is enough to illuminate an old stretch of road so you can move ahead without carrying its weight anymore. And then, alongside that familiar pull, another energy reaches you, softly. The second person arrives without the past, without old stories, without echoes of what once was. They feel like a deep breath, like calm water after a long wave has passed. With them, you do not need to explain. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to be anyone other than who you are. Their presence does not stir your heart violently, yet somehow, everything inside you grows quiet. They bring a sense of safety that is subtle, almost unspoken, not loud protection, not dramatic reassurance, but the permission to slow down, to set down roles you have carried for too long. You may notice yourself smiling more, breathing deeper, no longer tightening yourself to keep everything balanced. In their eyes, there is respect for who you are becoming, not who you used to be. What matters most is that these two energies do not compete. They exist side by side, like two currents meeting at an important bend in the river. One reminds you of everything you have survived, how strong you had to be to stand where you are now. The other whispers that you do not need to keep fighting, that a gentler way of living is waiting for you. Pisces, confusion may arise here, not because you must choose between people, but because you sense a deeper choice forming. The choice between continuing old patterns or allowing yourself to move into a different rhythm, one guided more by the heart than by fear. And within that very human uncertainty, a quiet understanding begins to settle. No meeting is accidental. Every person arrives carrying a message. And the way you listen to that message is what determines the true change taking shape inside you. There is a very strange moment that happens when you find yourself standing between those two energies. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, yet clear enough for you to feel your heart shift, just slightly out of rhythm. That is the moment you begin to understand that real change does not come from big promises or powerful declarations. It comes from the presence of someone who makes it impossible for you to keep pretending that you are fine when inside you are already exhausted. This person does not arrive to teach you something new. They do not lecture. They do not explain. They simply place a very clear mirror in front of you. And in that mirror, you see yourself without the strong outer layer, without the familiar roles you learned to wear just to survive. You see the cracks you once softened with kindness, with sacrifice, with the belief that love means endurance. And strangely, for the first time, you do not want to look away. With this person, you do not need to explain why you feel sad. You do not need to apologize for sudden tears. The silence between you is not heavy. It feels necessary, like a pause that finally gives your soul room to breathe. It may be nothing more than a simple question, a non-judging look, or a moment where they listen to you all the way through. Yet those small moments open doors you have kept closed for a very long time. You begin to look back at old pain without blame. You see how deeply you once loved, how hard you tried to keep everything intact, even when it cost you yourself. And for the first time in a long while, you allow yourself to admit something important. Some pain exists not because you were weak, but because you were strong for far too long. This person does not save you. They do not heal you in your place. They simply stand there, real, human, and somehow help you realize that you no longer have to carry everything alone. You begin to understand that your worth is not measured by how much you give, how long you endure, or how much you sacrifice. Your value lives here, in the fact that you are still here, still feeling, still soft enough to be moved, even after everything you have been through. This awakening does not happen all at once. It spreads slowly, like early morning light slipping through the curtains, not blinding, but clear enough to let you see things as they truly are. You begin to question old choices, not with regret, but with understanding. And inside that understanding, a deep forgiveness forms for yourself. You also realize that you deserve more than what you once accepted. You deserve respect, connections that do not drain you. A rhythm of life where your heart is heard, not ignored. This person's presence feels like a gentle reminder that life is not only about constant effort, it is also about learning how to receive. As you allow this truth to touch you, something inside begins to shift very quietly. You are no longer afraid to let go of what no longer fits. You stop holding on to relationships that exist only in memory. Instead, you learn how to stay with yourself, to listen to the smallest signals of your heart, and to trust that your intuition is guiding you in the right direction. And within this new stillness, when you stop resisting change, when you stop running from your feelings, a different kind of peace begins to form. Not the old sense of safety, but a steadiness that rises from within. You move more slowly, but with certainty. More gently, but with clarity. And as life continues to unfold in front of you, little by little, you begin to see something clearly. True change does not take anything away from you. It is preparing you to receive a version of life that is deeper, more honest, and far more real than anything you have known before. And then, once the truth has been faced, once your heart no longer needs to brace itself just to appear strong, a very subtle movement begins inside you. There is no breaking sound, no dramatic moment. Only the quiet relief of a weight slowly lifting. A weight you carried for so long, you forgot how tired you were. You do not consciously decide to change. And yet, change still arrives, naturally. Like your breath becoming deeper after a long stretch of silence, Pisces begins to realize how long they have lived in the role of the supporter. You became used to listening to other people's pain, used to placing their emotions before your own, used to telling yourself that as long as everyone else was okay, you could carry a little more. And then, a very gentle question appears. No blame, no judgment. Who was there when you needed to be held? Who truly listened when your silence lasted too long? And the answers are not as clear as you once hoped. This does not make you angry. It simply wakes you up. You begin to understand that sacrifice is not always love, and that saving others can never replace caring for yourself. Some relationships survive only because you keep draining your own energy, and when you finally stop, they grow quiet on their own. Not because you failed, but because you are no longer playing the old role. This healing does not arrive through grand rituals or dramatic gestures. It begins with very small choices. You allow yourself to say no without explaining too much. You allow yourself to walk away when respect is no longer present. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. And each time you do, a part of you returns to its rightful place. There are evenings when you sit alone and realize that silence is no longer frightening. There is no emptiness needing to be filled by someone else's presence, just you, your breath, thoughts moving more gently, and a new sense of safety beginning to form. You start to understand that peace is not perfection. Peace is no longer betraying yourself just to keep everything looking fine. The one who awakened you did not do this for you. They simply opened a door. You were the one who stepped through. And as you walk forward, you carry the familiar softness of Pisces, but without self-abandonment. You still love deeply. You still feel intensely. But now, you know how to set boundaries without building walls. You learn how to stay with your emotions without letting them pull you under. At times, you remember who you used to be and smile softly, not with regret, but with gratitude, grateful for the version of you who endured, who loved until exhaustion, so that today you can stand here with a deeper understanding of your own worth. You no longer seek validation from the outside as much as before. Instead, you listen to a very quiet inner voice, a voice that was always there, but only now has your attention. And as peace begins to take root, one truth becomes very clear. The world around you is slowly adjusting to the person you are becoming. No rush, no force, just small details finding new positions. You do not need to know where everything is going, only this. This time, you are walking with yourself, with a heart healed enough to receive the new movements already drawing closer. When peace begins to take root deep within you, the world around you starts to shift as well, in a way that feels completely natural, not loud, not overwhelming, more like a familiar room with an extra window opening, letting in more light, making the air easier to breathe. And suddenly, you realize you have been living in low light for far too long without ever knowing it. Pisces begins to look at life through a different lens, softer, yet clearer, no longer blurred, no longer uncertain. Relationships that once left you questioning begin to reveal their true nature. Some people slowly step back, not because you became distant, but because you are no longer holding them in place through quiet sacrifice. Others remain, but in a different form, more sincere, more balanced, no longer dependent on you straining yourself to keep the connection alive. You no longer feel pain when certain distances appear. Instead, there is a lightness that is hard to name, as if your heart has finally been set where it belongs. In work and finances, you begin to notice signals you once ignored. You stop chasing choices that only look safe on the surface. You stop trading inner peace for a false sense of stability. New opportunities arrive, not as sudden luck, but as invitations, as directions that feel aligned with the rhythm inside you. You work with less resistance, less doubt, and somehow things begin to flow. What once felt heavy no longer carries the same weight. You stop measuring your worth by how much you achieve, how much you earn, or how many people approve of you. A new measure forms quietly. You ask yourself if you sleep well, if you still carry other people's worries home every night, if you still have to convince yourself to stay in places that leave your heart exhausted. And as your answers become more honest, you know you are moving in the right direction. Life does not become perfect, but it becomes real. There are still challenging days. Moments of doubt still appear. Yet, unlike before, you no longer feel alone inside your own life. You stand at the center of your choices, not on the edges. You begin to feel a quiet respect from the world around you. Not because you demand it, but because you learn to respect yourself first. These changes spread evenly, slowly, like water soaking into dry soil after a long drought. You do not need to prove to anyone that you have changed. Those who are meant to understand will feel it. Paths that no longer fit close on their own, without explanation. And new directions open without pressure, without force, simply waiting for you to step forward when you are ready. Pisces begins to trust their own rhythm more deeply. You stop comparing your pace to others. You stop feeling restless when someone moves faster. You understand now that some journeys need time to settle, to mature, to become a natural part of who you are. And that patience gives you a strength that is quiet, unimpressive on the surface, yet incredibly steady. As everything around you slowly finds new order, you realize something important. Inner change does not only make your life lighter, it makes the world around you more gentle as well. You carry that calm into the way you listen, the way you respond, the way you choose silence at the right moment and speak when it truly matters. And within this very human shift, a clear feeling settles in. Life is no longer working against you. It is listening, it is responding, and it is preparing to place into your hands new experiences, deep enough to be cherished, bright enough to guide you forward, with a renewed trust in yourself and in everything still waiting on the path ahead. And then, when you look back at the entire journey you have just walked, you begin to realize something quietly powerful. That meeting was never only about who arrived and who stayed. It was never simply a story about romance, about a relationship, or about the role one specific person played in your life. What truly changed, what truly remained, was the way you now see yourself, after all those deeply human moments of connection, loss, and understanding. Pisces begins to sense a new version forming within. Not someone entirely different, but you, return to the parts of yourself that were once forgotten. You are still gentle, still deep, still experiencing the world with an open heart. But you no longer trade your peace to hold on to anyone or anything. You do not need to harden yourself to be strong. You do not need to shut down to be safe. You learn how to live inside your own softness without being wounded by it. After that encounter, you stop rushing to find answers outside yourself. The big questions of life are slowly replaced by something more honest, by how things feel. You know when to step forward. You know when to pause. You sense where you belong, and what is meant to stay only is a beautiful memory. And strangely enough, when you stop trying to hold on, the things that truly fit remain on their own. You begin to move more slowly, not because you lack direction, but because you value each moment more deeply. Mornings are no longer a race against invisible expectations. They become a quiet promise to yourself that today you will live truthfully, true to your emotions, true to your limits, true to the deeper desires resting in your heart. And that honesty gives you a strength that is different, not loud, but enduring. The person who entered your life, the one who touched you most deeply, may no longer appear every day, but their imprint is everywhere, in how you treat yourself, in how you choose to love without hurting your own heart, in how you allow yourself to leave when staying would only exhaust both souls involved. They did not live your life for you, but they helped you remember how to live it as yourself. Pisces comes to understand that not everyone who changes your life is meant to stay forever. Some arrive only to open a door, to light a stretch of the road, and then quietly step away once you are strong enough to continue on your own. And that truth is not as sad as you once believed. It carries a quiet beauty, like a silent thank you shared between two souls who met at exactly the right moment. Standing here now, in this moment, you are no longer the person who survived only by enduring and sacrificing. You are someone who has walked through, understood, let go, and chosen yourself again. You carry your sensitivity as a gift now, not as a burden. You allow yourself to trust life once more, not blindly, but with a faith shaped by experience. And if there is one truth that remains after everything, it is this, gentle and clear. The one who changes your life forever is not the one who turns you into someone else. It is the one who helps you return to who you truly are. Back to a heart that knows how to love and how to protect itself. Back to softness without self-loss. Back to yourself, whole, grounded, and more at peace than ever before.